It's an unexpected, rare pre-budget speech from Downing Street, basically outlining the state of the UK's public finances and explaining measures she's considering taking in order to fund spending, including on the National Health Service. Her speech comes as economists predict she will raise taxes in her budget later this month. That's coming on the 26th of November. Labour actually ruled out any increase in VAT, national insurance or income tax in last year's general election manifesto and repeated that promise several.
For years, the idea of leaving the UK felt extreme. Something people joked about after a bad winter, a tax rise, or another headline about prices going up. But that's changed. Quietly, steadily, millions of people are no longer joking. They're planning. This isn't a loud exodus. It's not driven by panic or protest. It's happening in spreadsheets, late night conversations, and long-term plans. People are comparing costs, researching visas, and asking a question that once felt unthinkable. Is staying in the UK still worth it? What makes this moment different is that it cuts across income levels, ages, and professions. Young, graduates, skilled workers, families, even business owners are all reaching the same conclusion for different reasons. The problem isn't just money. It's effort versus reward, pressure versus progress, and the growing sense that life in the UK is getting harder without getting better. Today, we're breaking down why millions are preparing to leave, the real drivers no one talks about openly, and what happens to the UK if this quiet exit accelerates. Number 10. What the UK risks losing if this continues. If large numbers of people continue preparing to leave the UK, the biggest loss will not be population, size, but momentum. Countries rely on ambition, skills, and confidence to renew themselves. When those quietly drain away, decline accelerates invisibly. Skilled workers, entrepreneurs, and young families are the backbone of productivity, innovation, and tax revenue. Losing them weakens public finances, slows growth, and increases pressure on those who remain. Over time, this creates a hollowing effect. Services deteriorate, opportunity narrows, and dissatisfaction deepens. The danger is not immediate collapse, but long-term erosion. Once a country gains a reputation as somewhere people leave rather than arrive, reversing that perception becomes extremely difficult. Momentum, once lost, is far harder to rebuild than infrastructure or budgets. Number 9. What happens if the talent drain accelerates? If departures accelerate, the UK faces a self-reinforcing cycle. As skilled workers leave, productivity falls. Lower productivity weakens growth, which limits wage increases and public spending. That, in turn, makes staying even less attractive. This is how talent drain compounds quietly rather than dramatically. Employers struggle to recruit, innovation slows, and competitiveness declines. Remaining workers face higher tax burdens to fund overstretched services, increasing frustration. Importantly, talent drain does not require millions leaving at once. Even modest, consistent outflows at the skilled end of the workforce can have outsized effects. The danger lies in timing. By the time the impact is visible in national statistics, reversing it is already expensive and slow. Number 8. Why this isn't about politics alone. While politics shapes the backdrop, this movement is not driven by one party or policy. People are leaving because of structural pressure, not ideology. Regardless of who governs, housing remains expensive, wages lag costs, and public services feel overstretched. When voters believe political cycles no longer change outcomes, they stop waiting for reform and start planning individually. Immigration becomes a personal solution to systemic problems. This is a critical shift. When faith in institutional correction fades, exit replaces engagement. That disengagement is far more dangerous than protest because it removes pressure for change and drains the system of people most capable of driving reform. Number 7. Families, safety nets, and the decision to go. For families, leaving the UK is rarely about ambition. It's about security. decisions revolve around housing stability, childcare costs, education quality, and healthcare access. When these systems feel fragile, staying becomes risky. Rising rents, limited school places, and long NHS waiting times create constant uncertainty. Parents do not need perfection. They need predictability. When safety nets appear, thinner each year, families begin comparing alternatives abroad where costs are clearer and outcomes more reliable. Leaving becomes a defensive move, not a lifestyle upgrade. Once families start planning exits, the shift is significant because family migration tends to be permanent rather than temporary. Number 6. Young professionals and the global exit option. Young professionals are the most mobile generation the UK has ever produced. Remote work, international hiring, and visa pathways mean opportunity is no longer geographically fixed. Many compare effort versus reward and conclude the UK no longer offers a compelling deal. High rents, weak wage growth, and limited savings potential make staying feel like running in place. Other countries offer lower living costs, better work-life balance, or faster wealth accumulation. When mobility is easy, loyalty declines. This is not disloyalty. It is rational calculation. Talent flows toward opportunity. And when opportunity weakens at home, exit becomes logical rather than emotional. Number 5. Public services and quality of life decline. Public services shape everyday life more than abstract economics. Healthcare delays, overstretched schools, and struggling councils affect daily decisions. These issues compound stress and reduce confidence in the future. When people feel they must rely increasingly on private alternatives just to maintain basic standards, the cost of staying rises sharply. Quality of life declines quietly, not through crisis but accumulation. Over time, this erosion pushes people to look elsewhere for stability and reliability. When services feel permanently strained, leaving becomes less about chasing improvement and more about avoiding deterioration. Number 4. Wages, taxes, and the vanishing payoff. Work in the UK is delivering diminishing returns for many. Wages lag behind living costs, while taxes rise to fund overstretched systems. Professionals work harder yet feel poorer each year. When disposable income shrinks despite effort, frustration grows. People begin comparing international salaries, tax burdens, and cost of living trade-offs. In many cases, they find better outcomes abroad. This isn't about greed, it's about fairness. When contribution no longer aligns with reward, motivation collapses. Once that calculation turns negative, staying becomes an emotional choice rather than an economic one. And emotional loyalty rarely survives sustained financial pressure. Number 3. Housing, rent, and the cost of staying. Housing is the single biggest push factor. Rents consume incomes, security is fragile, and ownership feels unreachable. Staying in the UK increasingly means accepting permanent instability. Short tenancies, frequent moves, and constant rent increases make long-term planning impossible. Housing. Stress affects every other decision: careers, relationships, family formation, and mobility. When shelter becomes a source of anxiety rather than stability, people look for alternatives. Many discover that other countries offer clearer paths to housing security, even if wages are similar. Housing does not just influence migration, it accelerates it. A society that cannot provide stable shelter loses its ability to retain people. Number 2. The quiet shift in public mood. What makes this moment different is silence. There is no mass protest or dramatic announcement. Instead, there is quiet disengagement. People feel tired, stretched, and unconvinced that conditions will improve. Optimism has been replaced by calculation. When future expectations collapse, emotional attachment weakens. People stop investing in long-term plans locally and begin preparing exits privately. This psychological shift matters more than statistics. Once people stop believing in improvement, they stop waiting. That is when migration accelerates not loudly, but steadily. Number 1. Why leaving the UK is no longer a fringe idea. Leaving the UK used to feel extreme. Now it feels practical. What changed is not one event, but accumulated pressure. Rising costs, stagnant wages, housing insecurity, and service strain have eroded confidence. People are no longer asking whether life is perfect elsewhere, but whether it is sustainable. Here, when dissatisfaction becomes logistical rather than emotional, exit planning follows. This is not about abandoning the country. It is about preserving quality of life. When staying feels like constant compromise and leaving feels like relief, the choice becomes rational. That is why millions are preparing. Quietly, not in anger, but in calculation.